Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the resumption of our special council meeting, where we will adopt the recommendations coming out of our Finance Committee that just finished for final budget day for 2017. And I will now turn the floor over to you, Chair Davey, for your report.
Thank you. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dave Schneider that the items from the 2017 operating budget we've just discussed be approved.
Okay. There are a number of, I think there was both one item from the report that Councillor Fernandez wanted to visit, and Councillor Marsh has indicated there's an item that she wants to visit. Councillor Gazzola, you're in the queue first.
And I apologize in asking this, but I again ask that we vote on each item separately with a recorded vote.
Each item in this whole report?
Yes, I think there are
okay.
There are 20 items.
Yeah, that's what you want to do. We will. We can entertain that. Councillor Fernandez.
Yes, in relation to item number 11 on our recommendation sheet, I would like to make a change to the Operation 1112 and Operation 13. In light of the discussion that happened earlier today around the water, sanitary, and storm rates, we have reduced our rates slightly by 0.54. So my thought was that possibly we may not be able to implement the full stormwater implementation plan. And so I thought maybe reducing the sanitary, the sewer maintainer to 1, and the engineering technologist on OP 13 to 1. I can see where we would need the design construction manager, because we want to start maybe working on some design and some construction, and we definitely need a sewer maintainer to keep up with the maintenance. But I wanted to see if we could implement the staffing of this later in the year. If we push it out 9 months or so, I think it's going to take a little while for us to get walking, never mind running on the implementation of that. So that's my recommendation.
Okay. Ms. Fletcher, you wanted to comment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the Mayor, while I appreciate what the council member is suggesting, none of these positions are related to implementing the Stormwater Master Plan. You'll note that all of the majority of these positions are related to the storm utility. So this is in relation to the 3 areas that we did not touch in terms of the maintenance programs. These are individuals to help us meet our legislated requirements, get our asset plans in place, and set us up in position to then move along with the Stormwater Master Plan. But it's not simply related to implementing the new Stormwater Master Plan. So we cannot achieve all of our legislative requirements without the equipment and the positions to go with it.
So are you saying we're not meeting our legislative requirements now, and therefore by hiring on the full slate of staff that I see here, that would help us meet our legislative requirements, or it will now exceed the legislative requirements?
Through the chair, it will not exceed the legislative requirements. There are new requirements coming down the pipe for both storm and sanitary, and so these resources are to position us to get our legislative requirements met and get our asset plans in place for our stormwater and sanitary assets.
Do we have an understanding on when those requirements will be fully in place?
Through the chair, I'm going to ask Ms. McGoldrick to speak in more detail about the plans for these resources.
Through you, Mayor. In terms of the legislative compliance, it relates to our environmental compliance approvals with our stormwater and sanitary pipe infrastructure. So with every piece of infrastructure that is put in, there are requirements in which we need to operate and maintain. And by not meeting those requirements, then we are at risk of charges and license removal. So we do know that there's an existing backlog in the stormwater outlet where we are not meeting our requirements, and we know that we are seeing increasing failures from a pipe perspective on the sanitary side. So we are at risk by not approving these positions.
Okay, and I can appreciate there's always concern about risk, and so let me rephrase this because I was picking, and maybe it's better if staff chooses, that I would still maintain that 2 positions be held off until at least half point through the year or 3/4 of the point through the year, and I would let staff management to decide which 2 positions that they could do. That's my motion.
Mr. Reedman?
Through the Mayor, I'd like to further clarify with respect to the OP13 position. Those positions are currently filled by contract positions. So as part of the approval of the Stormwater Master Plan and the implementation plan that a memo was circulated on November 10th, 2016, it outlined a body of work for a number of years, including 2017, of $5.346 million. So these 2 positions are meant to be permanentized as part of the rollout of the master plan in the engineering division. So there are currently people in the roles. It's meant to make these permanent positions to fulfill the duties in the master plan for those 2 engineering-related positions.
And see, that's where I have a bit of a concern, is that we are moving contract positions into full-time positions. And when we do that, they go from, being a FTE, which adds to our core complement. And I think there are implications to that in our operation budget, is there not?
Through the Mayor, extending a contract position, we have to discuss with the union. The approval of this master plan program has formalized a program for that stormwater utility. So that program was not formalized until Council actually formalized the implementation of the master plan program. So that's confirmed the need for these positions moving forward.
Mr. Wilmer, you wanted to add something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that the intent of Councillor Fernandez's motion is effectively met by the action that Council is about to take. So before we hire staff, we need to have Council's approval for headcount and budget. Because earlier today, Council trimmed approximately 0.54% or about $500,000 from the budget for utility operations, what Councillor Fernandez is intending is effectively what we will already have to deal with. If you approve the headcount, but we don't have budget either at all for some positions or not till halfway through the year, then we won't hire those positions until halfway through the year or the end of the year. So I think we take your intent, and I think it aligns with the actions that Council is already taking.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification very much.
Okay, so then, in light of that, you're leaving it? Okay, thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. At the appropriate time, I'd like to just revisit the motion that we most recently voted on in committee.
Okay. This is probably about as appropriate of a time as any.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm trying to see.
It's not in our paper.
Yes, it'll be, probably the general levy one. So I'll come back to that in a moment. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I just have a question that I should have asked when it was discussed in committee. And I don't know if this still is number 2, but we show that the assessment growth be budgeted at 1.65%. What indication do we have that that's the accurate figure for 2017?
Mr. Chapman?
Are you looking at you're really looking at an additional increase in assessment in 2017 of 1.65%?
Through the chair, that's the final 2017 increase per the returned roll. So we received the returned roll back in November or December, and that's the calculated assessment growth.
So you're
So we know what our tax base is for 2017, and that is the assessment growth built into that tax base.
okay. So you're taking, therefore you're taking the full assessment growth into calculation and coming up with our 2017 taxes.
Correct, and that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah, has it always been done like that? You've
always
taken
been-
the full amount? Okay.
Absolutely, yep.
That's fine, thank you.
Councillor Yanetsky.
Yeah, for resolution number 11, those dozen positions, could we vote on each one individually?
On each one individually?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure we're not here all night. I mean, is there a particular one you have a concern with?
Well, it's really a mixture on there, so I think,
So which ones do you have a concern with?
well, the 4, 11, 11, 12, 12.
4, 11, 11 and 12?
And then 12.
And then 12. Okay, I'll deal with those separately then. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Sorry, I think Councillor Marsh wasn't explicit. I think she may have beat me to the punch. Was the intention to revisit the final $200,000 transfer?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Marsh, do you want to click in?
Yeah, I'd just like to revisit the motion regarding the allocation of $200,000 toward this year's tax levy instead of the tax stabilization reserve fund. We didn't really have discussion on that item, and I felt I feel the need to ask staff to comment on that motion before I re-vote on it.
Mr. Chapman.
Through the chair, I'll be brief. I would just draw your attention back to pages 060 and 061 if you have your operating budget packages here. And if the clerk can put on the screen the bar graph. The bottom line is that if council approves that direction, it will basically take us back in the direction that we were in 2006 and reverse what has really been council's policy for the past 10 years. So what you can see here is that in 2006, we had a very healthy balance in the Tax Stabilization Reserve Fund. We were running surpluses, and we were drawing $4 million out of the reserve fund into the operating budget. As you know, surpluses and deficits are cyclical. We had a decade of deficits after that. And what we saw is that when we tapped into the reserve in the good years, it created pain during the bad years. So from 2007 to 2014, we were running operating budget deficits. And so in addition to those deficits, we actually had to pass on to ratepayers a 4% levy increase to back out of the room that we were in tax stabilization. You also see the major drop from 2006 to 2007. That's because this was our last line of defense to fund the 44 Gaukel remediation. So that's really the main purpose of the Tax Stabilization Reserve Fund. I think the chair made the comment, and we would strongly support it, that one-time revenue should only be spent on one-time expenses. A surplus is a one-time revenue. It's appropriate, therefore, that if we had a large balance in tax stabilization, you would fund that on capital needs or reserve transfers, but not build that in essentially as a permanent transfer to the operating budget.
Okay, so as much as I do want to offer support to my colleague, I can no longer support that motion, so I'd just like to re-vote on that one.
Okay, so so you're moving an amendment to put that 200,000 to put it back in? So you're changing the interest amount, but putting it in tax stabilization? Councillor Davey and then Mr. Chapman.
I think the simplest way to deal with it is it was already approved in committee, so she's just asking that it be voted on separately as part of council now.
Okay, we'll deal with it that way then. But just to be clear, you're moving that we still adjust the interest rates, or you just want to leave the interest rates the way it is? Okay, hold on. Councillor Marsh.
You're in the wrong book, not even on the wrong page.
Oh, come on.
Councillor Gazzola.
You know what? It's been a long day, and so let's keep ourselves civil here.
You will, don't worry.
So come on.
Okay, Councillor Marsh.
What I'd like to, I just want to clarify, what I want to re-vote on is the motion that we allocate $200,000 toward this year's tax levy instead of the tax, and that's any surplus we had from 2016. That 200,000 of it was, we voted and approved that it go to the tax levy instead of the tax stabilization reserve fund. I just want to re-vote on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Yanetsky, on that?
Yes.
Okay,
So
go
just
ahead.
as a clarification, based on Councillor Marsh's request for a revote, or when we go through the proper steps, and if it gets changed, so that 200,000 or that minus 0.18% will change to a zero?
That is correct.
So then the tax levy of 1.55% will now increase to 1.73%.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So, if you are in support of Councillor Marsh's motion, you will vote green? No. No, her motion is to reverse it. Okay, Councillor Davey.
Sorry, it is a bit confusing. So what happened is at the very end, Councillor Gazzola moved a motion to transfer $200,000 of the projected surplus from 2016 directly to the tax levy. Typically, that would go into the
So that is the
stabilization
staff report.
So we're simply, now that we're in council instead of committee, we're
Thank
just
you.
going to
Okay.
re-vote for the same thing. So if you want to reverse that decision, you would
Should
vote
vote
red.
against it. Thank you. Okay, so if you are in favor of the way it is, vote green. If you want to reverse it, vote red. Right. If you want to leave it the way it is, vote green. If you want to change it, vote red. Sorry? There's no orange. Sorry, Frank. Wrong level of government. Those in favor? Those opposed? Motion does not carry. So we'll now go through clause by clause. Number 1. You're voting on clause number 1, which is now at 1.73% and a total of $114,828,481. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 2, that assessment growth be budgeted at 1.65%. Number 2, we're voting on. That's carried unanimously. Number 3, that the enterprise budgets be approved. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 4, Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 5, stormwater. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 6. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 7, KPL and Center in the Square. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 8. Certainly. So number 8, Communitech. No, he already dealt with it. It was just the note on there. So number 8, Communitech. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 8, the balance. That's carried unanimous. We'll now go to number 9. So number 9, as I understand it now, is $12,000 for the museum, $4,000 for Pat the Dog, $4,000 for the art gallery, and $20,000 for 2 Tier 2 grants. 26, sorry. KY, sure. Okay. Does anyone want anything else split out? Okay, I'll do each one separately then. So we'll start off $12,000 for the museum. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. 4,000 for KWAG. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. 4,000 for Pat the Dog. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. And 26,000 into Tier 2 grants. That's carried unanimously. We'll now move on to item number 10. Doing a vote on number 10? Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. We'll now go on to item number 11. And so I'll deal with the 5 that we've been asked to deal with separately first. So I'll start with OP04. Senior developer in IT. Been asked to deal with those 5 separately. No, you want each of those 5 separately? Can I? Okay, you said you wanted to. Okay, let's just move on. OP04, senior developer. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. OP04, business analyst. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. OP11, truck driver sanitary utility. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Sewer maintainer. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. And OP 12, heavy equipment operator. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. The balance of the positions? That's carried unanimously. Number 12. Sure. Take 12 and 13 together. John, we're dealing with numbers 12 and 13 together. It's the mileage rate and the per diems. That's unanimous. Madam Clerk, just as I go into the next set, out of 14, 15, 16, 17, which ones do I need to deal with a separate vote on to accommodate Councillor Singh's conflict? Just 17 or 14 as well? Or others? We'll just
So the Mayor, I would say clause 17.
Just 17? Okay.
Yes. The other one could be looked at as an interest in common.
Okay.
Because it's the overall forecast.
Okay. So now deal with number. Councillor Fernandez, you have a question or on 14? For 14? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Fernandez.
I just want to do the separate, that's all. 14.
Yeah, well, we're dealing with each of them separately.
Oh,
so.
I apologize.
Yeah. So 14, capital budget. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 15. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 16. Those in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Number 17, the ones that Councillor Singh has a conflict with? No. Just, we're voting for the ones that he has a conflict with. Those in favor? Actually, it's unanimous with the noted conflict. And now we'll do the balance of the report. That's carried unanimously. Number 18. That's carried unanimously. Number 19. That's carried unanimously. And number 20. And that would be all those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. So that would take us through the entire budget. So we have a budget. I want to take this opportunity to pass on our thanks to Mr. Chapman, Mr. Hagee, and the entire finance team, first of all, but in fact, our entire corporation, because I know there are many, many hands that are involved in putting this together over the course of the year. And on behalf of council, I want to thank all staff for the work that they have done in getting this budget before us. I think at the end of the day, while I recognize it's not where everybody wanted to be, I think this budget has found the right balance of keeping costs low, making strategic investments where necessary, and also ensuring that we make key investments in infrastructure and so on as well. Bylaws have been moved by Councillor Galloway-Seelock. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fernandez. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Gazzola, you have new business? You clicked in. Oh, no, you don't? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Etherington, Councillor Davey, all those... Oh, actually, sorry, before I adjourn, in addition to thanking staff, I also want to thank Councillor Davey for his leadership as chair of the committee. I know he puts a lot of work into this, as do all members of council, but in particular as chair, it's a grueling set of 3 days of meetings to chair, and I want to thank you on behalf of council for your leadership in this regard as well. So with that, motion to adjourn. All those in